Raider Nation, wake up. It's time to talk silver and black. The final 53-man roster is almost here, and the Raiders have been making some bold moves that shocked everyone last night. Big changes are coming, and the countdown is on. Now, let's be clear, this isn't about what I would personally do. This is about predicting how the Raiders front office is really thinking as they shape this team. And trust me, some of these decisions will raise eyebrows. The headline move? A late-night trade that brought in quarterback Kenny Pickett from the Browns in exchange for a fifth-round pick. Some call it an overpay, but the Raiders clearly wanted security behind center. And with a compensatory pick expected due to Nate Hobbs leaving in free agency, the front office felt the gamble was worth it. 4 quarterbacks now sit in the Raiders' room, and that instantly makes this roster battle a lot more interesting. With just 53 roster spots available, every decision counts, and that means some tough cuts are on the horizon. The Raiders' quarterback situation just got a major shakeup. With Kenny Pickett arriving, the message is clear. Aidan O'Connell's time in silver and black is likely over. The team wanted an upgrade at QB2, and Pickett brings more experience and polish. That's why the front office made the move. It's about stability behind center. Most signs now point to an injury settlement for O'Connell, meaning his Raiders chapter could be closing. It's a tough reality, but the organization seems ready to move forward without him. Shifting to the backfield, Zamir White and rookie Ashton Jeanty look like the locked-in 1-2 punch. White especially turned heads in the preseason, running with power and confidence. Behind them, the competition is tight. Raheem Mostert's versatility as a pass catcher gives him an edge, while Dylan Lobb's value on special teams could keep him safe. That leaves Sincere McCormick as the odd man out despite his effort. The Raiders want depth that not only runs the ball, but also contributes in multiple phases of the game. And right now, White and Jeanty look ready to carry the load. The Raiders' wide receiver room is buzzing with drama. The headline, of course, is the signing of Amari Cooper on a 1-year, $6 million deal. It's fair money for a proven talent, but the real question is what this means for Jakobi Meyers. Meyers recently requested a trade, and while he's still on the roster for now, the tension is real. He's done everything asked of him this offseason, yet the extension he deserves hasn't come. From his perspective, it's simple. Pay me my worth or let me go. And honestly, you can't blame him. Still, letting Meyers walk would be a huge mistake. He's too valuable to the offense, and losing him for a straight-up swap would be disastrous. For now, he remains a Raider, and he should stay that way. The Cooper signing feels less about replacing Meyers and more about patching depth issues, especially with younger receivers like Tommy Mellott still in development. Realistically, the Raiders will carry 6 wideouts on the 53-man roster, but Mellott is more of a long-term project than a player ready to hit the field. This receiver group is one to watch closely. It could define the Raiders' passing attack this season. The tight end room looks much clearer than the wideouts. The Raiders will likely keep 3: rookie sensation Brock Bowers, second-year Michael Mayer, and Ian Thomas. Despite some shaky preseason moments, Thomas holds onto his spot, while others like Albert O and Carter Wren are more practice squad material. What makes this group so important is the offensive scheme. The Raiders ran more 11 personnel than any team in the league this preseason, which means plenty of 3 receiver looks but also heavy reliance on versatile tight ends. And here's the twist. Bowers isn't just a tight end. The team sees him as a potential number 1 receiving threat, capable of lining up wide and stretching defenses. That confidence in Bowers is part of why trade rumors around Jakobi Meyers continue to swirl. If Bowers develops into that true go-to weapon, it opens more snaps for Mayer and could reshape the passing attack entirely. The Raiders staff clearly believes in this young duo, and the roster decisions at tight end prove it. Now, let's shift to the Raiders' offensive line, a group that always sparks debate. Originally, 10 linemen looked set to make the roster, but after the decision to carry an extra wide receiver, one name had to go. That cut turned out to be Lokai Tosi. Tosi is raw, but his size and athleticism make him an intriguing project. The Raiders will likely stash him on the practice squad through the International Pathway Program, hoping to develop him into a long-term contributor. The risk, of course, is that another team could take a chance on him. As for the main roster, Thayer Munford survives once again. The front office seems committed to giving him another shot, even though his play has been inconsistent. The staff clearly values his potential more than outsiders might, and that belief could keep him around as a depth piece. The Raiders' O-line decisions highlight a balance between immediate needs and long-term projects. It's far from perfect, but the team is betting on size, athleticism, and raw traits they can mold into production. Next up, the defensive side of the ball, where things get even more interesting. Now it's time to turn to the defensive side of the ball, and this is where the tough decisions really start. Compared to the offense, there are far more question marks on defense, and every roster cut feels critical. One move that stands out is the decision to part ways with Andre Carter. Many felt he earned a place on the 53 after his preseason effort, but the Raiders went another direction. It's a tough call and one that some fans won't agree with. Meanwhile, Tonka Hemingway remains listed as a defensive end on the depth chart, though his skill set leans more toward defensive tackle. The staff clearly values his versatility across the line, and that flexibility could be what keeps him around. The defensive front is far from settled, and the Raiders' decisions here will say a lot about how they plan to attack opponents this season. On the edge, the Raiders are rolling with 5 defensive ends, though realistically, Tonka Hemingway will see more time at defensive tackle. What's fascinating is the flexibility this unit provides. We've already seen it in the preseason. One look might feature Max Crosby with 3 defensive tackles inside, while the next snaps could showcase a 5-man front mixing Crosby, Malcolm Koonce, and Tyree Wilson. Expect heavy rotation and plenty of creative fronts designed to keep offenses guessing. Inside, the addition of Thomas Booker could prove to be one of the smartest moves of the offseason. Right now, he's the second best defensive tackle on the roster behind Adam Butler, but his upside suggests he could eventually claim the top spot. Meanwhile, the team is encouraged by the recovery of Matthew Butler, who looks ready to contribute after his injury concerns. Roster decisions in the trenches were tough. Zach Carter pushed hard for a spot, and while there's a case for him, the final cut leaned toward balance across the line. In total, 10 defensive linemen make the 53. At linebacker, the picture is becoming clearer. Veterans like Jamal Adams, Jermaine Pratt, Landon Roberts, and Devin White are locks. The real battle has been among the younger players, Cody Lindenberg, Tommy Eichenberg, and Matt Jones, fighting for the final depth spots. The staff has been evaluating their special teams' impact as much as their defensive play, which could ultimately decide who sticks. When it comes to linebacker depth, the edge went to Tommy Eichenberg over Cody Lindenberg. The staff trusts Eichenberg a little more right now, and while Lindenberg shows promise, he's still in that raw, developmental stage. Think of him the way Eichenberg looked last season, flashes of ability, but still a lot to learn. In the end, the Raiders are sticking with 5 linebackers, keeping the door open for more depth in the secondary. And that's where the real questions begin. Reports earlier today confirmed that Las Vegas showed interest in Rasul Douglas before he chose Miami. Honestly, I can't fault him for passing. After the Raiders gave up on him, he revived his career elsewhere. The silver lining is this: it shows the team knows they need help at corner. Right now, this cornerback group is one of the weakest spots on the roster. Yakorian Bennett has been inconsistent, and Duke Shelley has struggled. Rookie Quandras Knight has upside, but he's raw. Darius Porter hasn't shown enough to be trusted with significant reps. Kyer Elam's status is shaky, and while Cameron Richardson's athleticism is intriguing, he's still a project. At slot corner, Darnay Holmes gets the nod for now, though there's a scenario where Greedy Vance edges him out if the staff values upside over reliability. Either way, this unit feels unsettled, and unless the front office makes another move, it could be the Achilles heel of the defense. At corner, I'm rolling with 5. That's partly because the Raiders are planning to use plenty of safeties and nickel looks, something we've seen throughout preseason. Now into the safety room. Jeremy Chin, absolute lock. Isaiah Polamau, lock. Lonnie Johnson Jr. is dealing with an injury, but I still believe the Raiders hang on to him. The decisions get tighter with Trey Taylor, Thomas Harper, and Chris Smith. If Harper had stayed healthy, he probably makes the roster. As for Chris Smith, his preseason had ups and downs, but he bounced back when it mattered. After struggling early, he came alive in those final 2 preseason games, and that resilience is exactly what coaches want to see. For that reason, I'm giving Smith a spot on the 53. The tricky part is Lonnie Johnson versus Terrell Edmunds. Edmunds has been taking those free safety reps and sliding into that big nickel role that Johnson usually fills. Still, I see a path where both stick, especially since versatility in the secondary is something this staff clearly values. Now let's wrap this roster with special teams. The kicking unit is obvious. Daniel Carlson, A.J. Cole, and Jacob Bobenmoyer hold it down. No surprises there. Where it gets more interesting is return duties. And to answer the question I've been getting, yes, Trey Tucker stays. His speed and value in the return game keep him firmly on the roster. So there you have it. The Raiders' projected 53-man roster, heavy on defensive line depth, cautious in the secondary, and leaning on youth at linebacker. It's not a perfect roster, but it's one built with versatility in mind. The Las Vegas Raiders have officially trimmed their roster down to 53 players, and today we're breaking it all down. We'll go through the cuts, which players the Raiders might regret letting go, and how the updated depth chart is shaping up right now. The Raiders made their final wave of moves yesterday, releasing several players we had been tracking throughout the preseason. One of the most notable cuts was defensive end Andre Carter, too. That one caught me off guard. Carter looked really good in preseason, flashed as a pass rusher, and genuinely impressed me. The fact that he was waived instead of stashed on the practice squad tells me the Raiders aren't planning to keep him around, and it opens the door for another team to scoop him up. At the same time, it's worth remembering Carter was a holdover from the previous regime, not a Pete Carroll pickup. Carter is more of a pure pass rusher than a run defender, and this coaching staff has made it clear they want linemen who can set the edge and play the run first. That likely factored into the decision. Another surprising move was the release of linebacker Amari Gaynor. Under Patrick Graham last year, Gaynor really stood out in the preseason and earned his way onto the roster. But Pete Carroll's scheme is different. It leans heavily on the cover 3, and we've seen safeties slide into hybrid linebacker roles in this system before. Think of Jamal Adams in Seattle or Jeremy Chin under Dan Quinn. That schematic shift likely squeezed Gaynor out, even though he had shown promise as a young player. One of the tougher moves came at linebacker, where Amari Gaynor confirmed on social media that his time with the Raiders is over. That stings a bit because he was a guy with size and some upside, but truthfully, he never made enough noise this summer.